Chris Sewall here, baseball card collector, investor, dealer, in that order. Welcome everyone. A couple weeks ago I asked you guys if anyone had any personal collection that they wanted to share on the channel, and man, did you guys deliver. I got over 50 emails from you guys with personal collections of all walks of life, just a wide variety of really impressive stuff, vintage, modern, a lot of unique stuff I'd never seen before. Really cool to see. The unfortunate thing was I got so many that there's no way I can highlight them all. I was originally actually only going to plan on doing, highlighting maybe 2 or 3, but given that I got so many, I'm going to highlight about 10 or 15 here and break it up into 2 videos, this video here, and then round 2, the second video will be a week from today. But thank you everyone who submitted your personal collection to me via email to look at. Really fun to check out and explore. And like I said, there's a lot of great ones I'm not even going to be able to use here. But that being said, let's take a look at some of the most unique collections from around the card hobby. Some with a lot of value, others that are just really impressive to have been put together, labors of love put together by true collectors in the hobby today, and some really nice stories to go along with them as well. Dennis Kawasaki has a really unique collection, something I've never seen before. I really like his story, so I'm just going to read directly from his email as we look over pictures of his collection. I remember growing up in California collecting 1989 Donruss, Topps, Score, and Fleer. Not so much Upper Deck because it was too expensive, and I hated Baumann since it didn't stack well with the rest of my cards. My favorite player card was 1989 Donruss Earl Hershiser. I only collected for a couple of years as it became more and more difficult to convince my parents to buy me packs. I did, however, enjoy baseball and continued to follow it. My love of baseball was taken to a whole nother level when Hideo Nomo joined the Dodgers. Being Japanese American myself and not seeing any Japanese or any Asians for that matter playing in the major sports, Nomo brought a type of pride that I just hadn't felt before in sports. My family and a group of close friends drove 4 hours to watch him pitch his first Major League Baseball game, and I was blown away when I learned that Masanori Murakami played in the majors decades earlier in the 1960s. It would be many years later when eBay matured and that I was finally able to obtain the Murakami card. I moved down to Orange County for college, and now being 30 minutes away from Angel Stadium, I've been able to take my son to watch Shohei Ohtani. Perhaps trying to capture that initial excitement of seeing Nomo is how I came to start collecting Japanese-born Major League Baseball players. According to Wikipedia, there's 63 or so such players that have played in the majors. I have graded cards of about 20 of the players and at least a raw card of every single one except for 2. Kensuke Tanaka, who only has a single minor league card, and Hirokazu Sawamura that just had his first card come out in 2021 Optics. Aside from the Ichiro 2001 Topps Chrome PSA 10 and the Ohtani 2018 Baumann Chrome PSA 10, it's not a particularly valuable set. Many of the raw cards are just commons, and I was able to get them for around $1, but I try and upgrade to parallels or autos whenever I can. The 1965 Murakami PSA 8 is my favorite of all. I'd eventually like to get one of those in a PSA 10, although it's just a pop 3 and sells for 5 figures. Next collection is from Corey Baumann, and man, what a project this is. Corey was born in 1979, like me actually, and he collected briefly during the junk wax era, but like many, when he sort of got into his teenage years, he basically drifted out of the hobby. Although he remained a baseball fan, always loved the Milwaukee Brewers where he's from, and always sort of had a thing for collecting autographs. His stepdad passed away in 2011, and he and his stepdad had sort of bonded over sports. That's how they sort of built a relationship, and he inherited from him a 1979 Topps baseball set. Like I said, that was the year he was born, and being that Corey loved autographs, he got the idea to try to get the entire set autographed, and I'll just let his email tell the story from here. I began researching every player in the 1979 set, who signed, when they last signed, if the players required a fee, etc. After that tedious task was over, I printed out about 400 or so pre-drafted letters and would simply write "Dear Mr. Blank" on top and put the date in the upper corner. Underneath, I would sign my name, handwrite the address on the envelope, and then stuff them with the letter and a self-addressed stamped envelope with their card in a top loader. Over the course of the next few months, I got back mail almost every day. Sometimes more than 5 cards would come back in a day. Super exciting, super fun. Some came back in a few days, others a few weeks, some up to a year, and a few I got back years later. Ray Fosse took almost 4 years to reply, while Rod Gilbreth took 4.5, but they both signed eventually, and getting those back when I sort of thought they were gone forever was pretty amazing. After I ran out of players to write, I slowly started chipping away on eBay. Some players used to sign regularly, but due to health or even death, had stopped. Over time, you begin to learn about the players, and why they were more rare. Some that hated signing, some players that passed away very young, and even one player, Byron McLaughlin, that is on the lam for running a counterfeit shoe operation in the 80s. And he is actually believed to be hiding out in Mexico or France, or he could possibly be dead. I'm still chipping away, but I've narrowed down the checklist of 777 signatures down to about 75 cards left to go. Of the ones I'm missing, 19 are Hall of Famers and 26 are deceased. There's also 5 Ron Guidry cards in the set too. He actually signs through the mail during spring training, but apparently sending them all 5 at once was a little too greedy of me. I'm still missing 2 Hank Aaron's, and one of those 2 has Roger Maris on it, and there are dual signed cards of that go for around $1,500. The other big one is Thurman Munson, who died in 1979, so that's his last card. That's also around $1,500 last I checked. Ken Boyer is around $500 or so, and the Byron McLaughlin runs at least $150, and his card actually has 2 other rookies on it. So while I may never get all of them, I'm hoping I can whittle it down to, maybe those final 4 or 5. Next up is Brad Mueller, and he has a modern collection worth drooling over. I'll just read directly from his email. As with so many, I loved opening packs of cards as a kid and then left the hobby for quite a while, only to pick it back up recently. I still remember very well my dad taking my brother and me to the store to buy packs of 1984 Topps baseball cards. I had a ton of fun opening them and sorting them into numerical order, trying to put the entire set together. I think I was only able to put together about 2/3 of the set, but opening packs and looking to see if I, had already had a particular card was super exciting. So when I got back into the hobby in 2019, I wanted to build a set and complete it, knowing that I hadn't finished the 1984 Topps set as a kid. I fell in love with the 2019 Topps Chrome Sapphire baseball set. The cards are stunning, and I really like the fact that there wasn't a ton of them produced. Each of the 700 base cards from that year is limited to about 1,000 copies, and there are only 4 parallels of each base card: orange, purple, red, and the superfractor. So I decided to put the entire set together. Even though there weren't a lot of base cards produced, it was still pretty easy to buy lots on eBay and take part in breaks, and after about 6 months I had the entire set of 700 cards. But after that I needed another challenge and decided to see if I could collect the entire set of the 700 orange refractors. That has proven to be significantly more difficult. There's only 25 copies of each card, and you generally only get 1 or 2 colored refractor cards in each box, so buying boxes wasn't going to be very efficient if I was going to find 700 different orange refractors. I was able to buy a small lot of the orange refractors on CUMC, but for the most part I've had to buy them one at a time on eBay and from other sellers as I find them. As of today, I've acquired 502 of the 700 orange refractors. Of those 502, I have 40 in a PSA 10. I'd like to eventually get all 700 in a PSA 10, but that may be tough given the current prices at PSA. The first goal is to find all 700 orange refractors. It's taken me the first 9 months of 2021 to get from 400 to 500, so I imagine it's going to be, there are 2 or 3 more years to find them all. Next up is Ben Christian, who has a collection of all sorts of goodies, a massive collection. But I just wanted to highlight sort of one piece of it, as it's very unique, and that's obviously the theme of the video. Here it is in his words. My first job was at a baseball card shop, and I got back into the hobby 25 years later recently. Here's my collection and main COVID project that helped me keep my sanity: a signed card and ball from every #1 overall baseball draft pick. The toughest one was Steve Chilcott, who never had a card, and we've become friendly with texts and calls since he helped me complete my project. I gifted him a bunch of custom cards for all his help. I try to get sweet spot with the inscription on balls and the best possible card and clear autograph within reason for the display. My biggest need is 2 single-signed Danny Goodwin balls. What made me do this? Well, I thought the cards would fit nicely into an open spot on my man cave wall, and I realized all #1 picks were still alive. I loved that 1985 Topps subset and wondered why some guys were omitted from it. My Tigers just drafted Mize and were due for another #1 overall draft pick in 2020. Fun facts about me and some of the autographs: Bryce Harper and Steven Strasburg came through Harrisburg, where I got Harper to sign the ball, and I saw Steven Strasburg's first pro game in Altoona. Delman Young once tossed me a ball from the on-deck circle in Baltimore, and my wife worked at the Hershey chocolate plant with Al Chambers in 2020. And Steve Chilcott, he lives on the beach and has been to every continent, did very well in real estate, and has been happily married for a long time. I received some custom cards I sent him in March 2020, right when we were all mostly locked down to complete the project. I called him to thank him, and we talked for a while. It was a big boost for me during a crappy time, and we still chat now and then. The Torkelson is a 1 of 18 Prism Auto 2019. It's the only green ink one, though, to my knowledge. Other cool ones are BJ Surhoff and Delman Young, which are both 1 of 1s. Tim Foley, I just picked SSPC for variety. I tried to make the collection a walkthrough of the history of baseball cards. I really learned a lot putting it together. Next up to bat is Phil Machemer. Hope I'm pronouncing your name right. He has a ridiculous Juan Gonzalez collection and a really touching story of how he sort of got started. I specifically collect Juan Gonzalez. I collected a bunch when I was a kid, and in the last year or so I've been adding a ton to the collection. I love the 90s stuff, and I've been grabbing a lot of ultra-modern autos and relics as well. I have roughly 1,000 different cards in my collection. I own about 800 of his 1990 Topps rookie. I also have a bunch of signed stuff as well. The crown jewel of my collection is a painting by an artist named Philip Burke that was used in a 1998 Sports Illustrated article. Burke happened to be from my hometown, and I was able to meet him and buy the painting directly from him. I started collecting Juan Gonzalez in the mid-90s when I was maybe 8 or 9 years old. My parents did not have a lot of money, but they knew I loved baseball. One year for Christmas, they bought me this Juan Gonzalez photo ball. I didn't know much about him, but I started to see his cards pop up in the junk wax packs I was able to get my hands on. As I got a bit older, I started seeking out his cards at card shops and in packs, and I never really saw him play or anything. I just knew from his stats and whatever magazine articles I could find that he was a fantastic hitter. I was able to accumulate around 300 different cards by the end of the 90s when I stopped collecting. As you know, it was much harder to find cards back then. It brought me a lot of joy to find new cards now that I didn't have, and it's been great to have the feeling of buying cards again. I've only now realized as an adult that most likely my love for collecting Juan Gonzalez stems from me not wanting my parents to think I was disappointed in the gift they gave me because I knew that was all they could afford back then. Thinking about that now makes me a bit sad, but I know that growing up that has given me the tools to become a somewhat successful adult. And the last collection for today is from Paul Bonner, another just great collection and a really, really nice collecting story. Check it out. I am 40 and I grew up collecting junk wax. 86 Topps was my first set, but today I only collect vintage, mostly baseball, and it's because of my late uncle Gene. My dad and his younger brothers, Gene and Mark, grew up in the 50s and had an epic collection spanning the 1950s. To hear my dad tell it, they had 40 to 50 copies of the 1954 Topps Hank Aaron rookie. Typical 1950s kids spent every nickel they had on buying packs. Their cards were mostly pretty beat up because they would used to flip them with the other kids in the neighborhood. There was an infamous story in my family where my Uncle Gene went on an epic hot streak flipping against another kid, where Gene basically won the kid's entire collection. My grandmother heard about it and ended up making Gene give the cards back. Sadly, the old cliched story of mom throwing the cards away applies here. Their entire collection was thrown away by my grandmother when they moved from Pennsylvania to Massachusetts in 1959. I grew up hearing these stories and learning all about the 50s legends, and at around age 8 or 9, Gene started taking me, my brother, and my buddy Nick to local card shows. For years, Gene brought us to shows, and while we were kids, we were really only interested in buying packs and Ryan Sandberg singles. Gene would take us to vintage dealers and show us the cards he and my dad and my Uncle Mark had had as kids. They each had their favorites. Gene loved Roberto Clemente, my dad loved Ted Williams, and Mark loved Hank Aaron. Gene and Mark both also loved Mickey Mantle, which my dad found quite objectionable, given that he was a Red Sox fan. When Gene died in 1995, I inherited part of his collection that included his prized 1956 Topps Grayback and 7 or 8 other Roberto Clementes. At that point, I was starting to lose interest in modern cards, and I decided I would try to finish Gene's Clemente collection, at the time aiming to acquire each base Clemente card from 1955 through 1973. Fast forward a couple of decades, and I've amassed a pretty nice Clemente collection, expanding out of scope to include slabbed and raw copies of his base cards, variations, league leaders, all-stars, and oddballs. While Clemente is my main focus of my PC, I've also been working on Ted Williams in my dad's honor. Thankfully, my dad's still with us today. He loves seeing the old cards, and the day I got my 39 play ball Ted Williams was a big one. And Hank Aaron in my late Uncle Mark's honor. I even managed to sneak in a few Mickey Mantles here and there. Outside of the Clemente, the condition on most of my cards is lower grade, but I figured this is probably the condition they were in when my dad and uncles collected them, so the dings and creases really don't bother me much. I prefer lower grade and raw with decent eye appeal, but we'll buy slabbed if it's a good value too. While I've expanded my collection to include a few pre-war as well, the 50s cards are really my favorites. I really just love the idea of collecting the kind of cards that my dad and his brothers had in their collection back in the day. So that's it for now. Thank you everyone for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and of course, thank you to everyone who submitted a collection. As I mentioned, I'll do part 2 a week from today as there's more collections to share. Until next time, stay safe and have a great day. Thanks, guys.